Welcome to Across the Goal Line, live from the field, with your favorite sports analysts, Corey Maines and Luke Goddessard. Take it away, Corey.
Welcome, everyone, to the 6th edition of Across the Goal Line. Corey Maines here with Luke Goddessard. How are you today, Luke?
Pretty good, Corey. Shaved off my Bray Wyatt beard, wearing my new New York Jets Jet hat that I ordered off of NFLshop.com since Christian Hackenberg, my favorite player, got drafted by those Jets last Friday night in the second round, 51st overall in the NFL draft. So, but we'll get into that here in a little bit.
Yeah, you said it. Today we'll be discussing what happened at WWE Payback and at the NFL Draft. We'll also be taking a look back at our picks for the NBA and NHL playoffs, as well as updating you on what's going on there. Also, we'll be taking a look back at the first month of baseball and where the teams stand right now. But we start with the Nascar race that happened at Talladega on Sunday, which was won by Brad Keselowski, winning his second of the season, beating out Kyle Busch in a wrecked-filled race that saw 35 out of 40 cars involved in some sort of accident. There was 12 car accidents in the final 28 laps alone, and 21 of the 40 finished on the lead lap, with 12 not even finishing the race. Now next week, there's a night race taking place on Saturday at Kansas Speedway, which saw Jimmy Johnson winning last year. We're going to move on now. We're going to go into our picks that we did for the NHL and NBA playoffs. We'll start with the NBA. Currently in the second round, we have this in the West. We have the Spurs taking on the Thunder and the Warriors taking on the Blazers. Now I picked those four teams to make it out of the West, and I'm going to stick with my pick of the San Antonio Spurs going to the finals and winning the finals because, of course, they're still in it right now. I think they still look good. They beat Memphis, no problem, swept them easily. The Warriors are missing Curry right now, but he might be back for Game 3 coming up on Saturday. Otherwise, I think the Spurs are still looking good. I got them going.
I still have the Warriors, my pick as well. And as you said, Steph Curry's been injured. But the Warriors are up 2-0 on the
Portland.
On Portland, yeah. But yeah, so I still have the Warriors against the Cavs out of the East in the NBA Finals.
Speaking of the Cavs, in the East, we have the Cavaliers taking on the Hawks. They're already up 2-0 in the series right now. Also, the Heat taking on the Raptors, who play tonight in the Game 2 at Toronto. I lost my Eastern Conference final pick in Boston in the first round when they lost to the Hawks in 6 games. I realized that was a pretty audacious pick, but I'm still going to stick with someone other than the Cavaliers going to the Eastern Conference Finals, because the Cavs, I don't think they look too impressive in their sweep of Detroit in the first round. There's a lot of very close games that could have gone either way. And otherwise, I think that the Miami Heat, who gave Cleveland troubles in the regular season, can really do that in the postseason now, too, if they can get to the next round beating Toronto here.
Now, the Heat would be the perfect team to do that because LeBron played down in Miami for 4 years after he left Cleveland. We all know what happened there. He ended up going back. But yeah, I could see the Heat beating the Cavs and going to the finals. But as I said, I'm sticking with the Cavs in the East and going up against the Warriors. And I think the Warriors will still win and repeat as NBA champions this year.
Now, going on the picks, my picks, I did pretty well for myself. Like I said, I had everyone right in the West, but I missed 2 in the East. I missed Boston, who lost to the Atlanta Hawks, and then I had Charlotte. I had them beating the Heat, who coincidentally is now my Eastern Conference final team, which is kind of funny if you think about it. So, Luke, how well did you do?
I had the Dallas Mavericks beating the Oklahoma City Thunder. They did win 1 game, but all the games were really close. But they couldn't get the job done in the long run. I'm trying to remember what other games.
I think you had the Clippers.
I did have the Clippers, but last week I did say since Chris Paul and Blake Griffin were both injured, that I wouldn't be surprised if the Blazers did beat the Clippers, and which they did. So that was another one I got wrong. I can't really remember. All I know is that, and I'm going off of you, I can't really remember any because I still have the Warriors and Cavs in the finals, and both those teams are still playing. So that's really all I've been paying attention to after my Boston Celtics lost team you had in the finals coming out of the East. But, yeah.
All right, we'll shift gears into the NHL now. They're also in the second round, about 3 games in each series, 4 for the one in the East. But we'll start in the West. The Stars are taking on the Blues, and the Predators are facing the Sharks. Both of those series are at 2-1 right now, with the Blues and the Sharks up in those series 2-1. So, out of the West, I got everyone right except for the Sharks. Now, I had the Kings beating them, but I didn't realize when I went through this, I apparently have no respect for the San Jose Sharks, but they were the best road team in the NHL during the regular season, and they do have a very lethal power play with that top power play unit of I think Pavelski, Thornton, Brent Burns, Logan Couture, and some other. I forget. I looked it up earlier, but I forget now. Other than that, I have everyone else. I picked the Predators, even though the Ducks were winning that series. I did cite their lack of finishing that a couple past years. Why? Because I picked them a bunch of in past years, but they lost pretty disappointingly. I also had the Blues being the Blackhawks, who you lost. I know you'll say right here, but I'm going to stick with the Stars for right now. I have them winning the Cup, so I'm going to stay with them. But if the Blues can pull that out, I think the Blues the whole way, because they would be taking down 2 of the best teams in hockey, not just in the West, in the Blackhawks and the Stars. But I shouldn't still be sleeping on the Sharks because they are a great team and they have this guys around them to go the distance.
Yeah, I had the Blackhawks defeating the Blues, but that obviously didn't happen. I ended up having the Blackhawks go whole way to the Cup, but as I said, that's not going to happen because they lost. But I'm still going to stay true to my word with my pick out in the East. I still have Pittsburgh Penguins going up, and I'm going to say they're going to face let's say the San Jose Sharks, the team you're just talking about there.
All right, in the East, we have the Capitals taking on the Penguins. That series is at 3-1 for the Penguins. And the New York Islanders taking on the Lightning. That is 2-1 for the Lightning now after a overtime winner, I think yesterday it was. So I lost my Eastern Conference pick with Florida. They lost to the New York Islanders in the first round. I also lost my Philadelphia Flyers because, they are my favorite team. I'm very loyal to them. So I picked them to beat the Caps, but unfortunately they weren't able to do that. So now I have to choose someone else to go to the finals. And because of where the Caps are now, I'm not going to pick them. They're down 3-1 to the Penguins. I'm going to go Lightning to return to the Stanley Cup Finals. Unless the Caps come back, then probably the Capitals. But I just can't pick the Penguins because, being a Flyer fan, I hate them. And I cannot do it. I cannot pick the Penguins no matter how good they are. They are a good team. I will admit that. But I just cannot pick the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Well said. I don't have any problems with that. I understand where you're coming from there, Corey.
All right. Now we're going to finally move into our final of the picks that we made earlier in our episodes here on Across the Goal Line. We talked about baseball, the MLB. We made a bunch of division winners and who we thought were going to go and maybe make the playoffs, wild cards, and into the World Series. So baseball has wrapped up its first month here a few days ago. And where it stands now, we have Boston leading the AL East, who I had also winning the East for my picks. They're a half game ahead of the Orioles, who are 15-11. Luke, you had Boston too, didn't you?
Yeah, I had the Boston Red Sox, coming out of the East. I had the Detroit Tigers in the Central, and I had the Houston Astros winning the AL West.
I'll catch up on my picks too for the AL. I had Boston, like I already said. In the Central, I had Kansas City to repeat, and I had the Houston Astros as well in the West. So I already said the AL East, the Boston Red Sox 16-11. They're a half game ahead of the Orioles. They're at 15-11. In the Central, the White Sox, who are a surprising upstart team this year, are 19-9, and they are 4.5 games ahead of the Royals, who I have, who are at 14-13. But the Royals are in third. I believe your Tigers are in second place in the division.
Yes, they are. And going back to the White Sox there, they've really proved people wrong, especially with everything that happened with Adam LaRoche, with him retiring because of the management of the White Sox won't let his son in the clubhouse anymore. But that's really a long story. Don't really want to get into it when we're going over our predictions here.
Another pretty surprising team leading their division right now in the AL would be the Seattle Mariners, who are 16-11. Now, they're 6.5 games ahead of our Astros that we picked, who are at an abysmal 10-18 so far, last in the division. So that's not really going well for us right now, would you say?
No. I had the Yankees as well, finishing second in the East, and both the Yankees and the Astros are dead last in their respective divisions right now, as you said.
That is a trouble. So, Luke, if you remember who you had making the playoffs and who's coming out of the AL there.
I had the Red Sox in the World Series.
You know that much. Do you know who you had into the playoffs? Or the wild card, at least, I guess. Because of course, the division winners are in the playoffs. But.
I believe I had the Yankees and Royals, or the Royals and Angels. If I'm not mistaken, it's been a while.
No problems. It's okay for that. So I'll just ask one quick question. Do you think the Astros can maybe turn this around where they are right now?
They could. Any one of these teams can. I mean, it's still so early in the season. We're only a month in, as you said. Anything can happen. We still got all summer. And then September, and anything can happen in September with baseball. So it's hard to tell what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's really hard to gauge right now in that 1 month period. I mean, 162 games. They got a way to go. A lot of teams only have about 20 some games in right now. So yeah, we got a really large chunk of the season left. We'll see what happens down the line. So moving on to the NL side of things. My picks for the NL, I had the NL East champion being the Washington Nationals. My Washington Nationals, actually.
So did I.
The NL Central, I had Chicago, which you also had, I believe.
Yeah, I originally had the Pirates, my Pittsburgh Pirates, but when we recorded, I changed my mind and had the Cubs win the Central, and then the Pirates as a wild card.
And then out of the NL West, I had the San Francisco Giants. I think you had them as well, maybe?
I had the Arizona Diamondbacks, who are currently in last place, but next to last place, excuse me. But that NL West, it's 3 games back is the team in last place right now. So, and as I said, anything can happen because we're only a month in. We got a whole slew of games remaining.
Exactly. You talk about the NL West being pretty tight right now. The NL West has the Giants in the lead right now. My pick, they're at just a half game up at 15-14 over the LA Dodgers, who are 14-14 at 500. So, like you said, those guys in last place, like the Diamondbacks there, they can move up really easily just in a few games coming up now. The NL Central, the Cubs are ahead. They're off to a torrent pace after what last season they really impressed. They're at 20-6 and are 6 games ahead of the second place Pirates, who are 15-13. Your Pirates, Luke.
Yeah, the Cubs actually just swept the Pirates this past week down in Pittsburgh, and Jake Arrieta almost no-hit him again. I think he almost no-hit him before, but anyways, the Pirates just didn't look good. The Cubs swept them, and enough with that.
And then finally, the NL East, the Nationals are leading that division right now. My Nationals are 19-8. They're just at 1 game and a half ahead of the New York Mets, who are 17-9. Who coincidentally, the Mets are my wild card team, other than I believe it was the Dodgers. I'm not quite sure. I have to go back and check on that. I don't remember my second wild card team. I think I had the Mets ultimately winning that wild card game.
I had the Nationals winning the East, the Cubs winning the Central, and the Diamondbacks winning the West. And then the 2 wild card teams were the Pirates and Giants. And then this year is an even year as well. And I almost picked the Giants to go to the World Series, but I had the Cubs go in the World Series out of the NL. I think you had the Giants.
I had the Giants, yes. I had the Giants winning the whole thing, beating the Astros, believe it or not, who are looking the way they are right now. I think I'm going to have to change that pick. I don't know who to pick, though. Honestly, I was thinking about it earlier today upon looking at the standings because of where the Houston is right now, and I couldn't pick a team off the top of my head originally. I like where the White Sox are right now, and I'll just go with them to make the World Series, but ultimately I'm going to stick with the Giants. I think they can do it. I mean, even year, like you said, they seem to produce magic those years. So, before we move into our next topic, we'd like to bring you our stat of the week this week. Luke, I believe you have something.
Yes, Corey. It's very, very interesting. On this date, 101 years ago, so on May 5th, 1915, Cy Young, who the Cy Young Award for a pitcher is named after, pitched the first perfect game of the modern era in baseball. Do you like what you hear? If so, you need to check out Silence Our Perdition, a metal band from Clearfield, Pennsylvania. They're fairly new in the music industry, but they're on the rise. Some songs include Slaves to Obedience, Never, Six, Left and Solace, and An Untold Story. Be sure to like Silence Our Perdition on Facebook and follow at SO Perdition on Twitter. You can contact them on either Facebook or Twitter. Do you like hunting, fishing, or talking about the outdoors? If so, you need to check out Downriver Outdoors, an outdoors channel on YouTube that brings you some of the best footage of hunting and fishing from the backwoods of Central PA. They also tell some great outdoors stories. Be sure to subscribe to Downriver Outdoors on YouTube. Alright, now we're going to get into WWE Payback review, but before we do, we here at Across the Goal Line would like to send our thoughts and prayers to Downriver Outdoors' founder, Jimmy Shirey. You just heard his ad a little bit ago there. His cousin accidentally shot himself in the leg this past weekend while out turkey hunting. So again, we'd like to send our thoughts and prayers to him, and hopefully he has a speedy recovery.
WWE Payback took place on Sunday, the 1st of May, which saw WWE World Heavyweight Champion Roman Reigns successfully defend his title against AJ Styles in a match that had to be restarted twice. But more on that later. We'll begin with the first match of the night, which saw Baron Corbin take on Dolph Ziggler in a match that was won by Ziggler via a roll-up on the pre-show. I was very surprised to see that Corbin lost this match, but it's probably setting up for Extreme Rules later on. I mean, they set it up on Raw the next night in the U.S. title number one contender Battle Royal. So, Luke, what do you think about that match?
Yeah, the Lone Wolf, Baron Corbin, was ahead most of the match, and he's had a lot of momentum on his side, as I said before, after winning the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal at WrestleMania, and then losing to Ziggler in his first ever match he lost on the main roster after getting called up. But yeah, I think it will lead to Extreme Rules. They'll have some type of match in a couple weeks.
Kalisto then retained his U.S. title against Ryback in a match that I didn't really care for on the pre-show. But Luke, do you have anything to say about that?
No, I mean, the only thing I could say is, Ryback, he's off television now. He's in contract disputes with Vince McMahon. So we're not going to be seeing much of the big guy here coming up.
I guess the only thing I will say is with the future of the U.S. title, on Raw I mentioned the U.S. title Battle Royal for the number one contendership, which was run by Rusev, who's a former U.S. champion. Honestly, I don't know what they're doing with the U.S. title. Maybe they put it on Rusev. I don't know about that. But honestly, at this point, I feel like they're just holding out and waiting for John Cena to return to have that title back.
I was just about ready to say that. I think they will have Rusev beat Kalisto at Extreme Rules, and then John Cena is supposed to come back on Memorial Day the following Monday. So it would lead to John Cena facing Rusev at Money in the Bank in the middle of June. And then, maybe the U.S. Open Challenge will come back and we'll have a lot of NXT guys get called up again. And, a lot of guys on the main roster, that were in that Battle Royal contend for the title and the Open Challenge.
All right, that ended the pre-show. Those are the only two matches on the pre-show. Now we move on to the actual main card for Payback. And it started off officially on a pretty somber note, I would say, during the opening match. It was the number one contender match for the tag titles, and partway through the match, Enzo Amore suffered a serious concussion that put an end to the match, resulting in a no contest. The accident happened when vaudevillain Simon Gotch was throwing Amore outside the ring under the ropes. Amore's head caught on the second rope, and then his head whiplashed down and struck the mat hard, knocking him out instantly. Medical attention arrived, and he was stretchered off and taken to a local medical facility.
Yeah, but I heard that Enzo was cracking jokes in the hospital after getting, scans and x-rays done. So he'll be back in a little while.
Speaking of that, him in the emergency room in the hospital there, I saw a picture of Kevin Owens, who tweeted out a picture with him with Enzo Amore and Colin Cassidy in the background talking to each other. So, yeah, it looks like Enzo's going to be just fine. He'll be back in a little bit, depending on how they deal with this concussion problem that he's got. Speaking of Kevin Owens, he was actually next on after that happened, and you could kind of tell if you were watching, you could tell that Owens was kind of shook up by what happened out there, because he is friends with Enzo in Colin Cassidy and him, like outside of the ring, of course, because of course inside the ring he's a total jerk, but I mean, that's his character, so we'll have to just leave it at that.
Yeah, they were both down in NXT together, so, friendships started down there, and they've lasted, till now, so.
Speaking of friendship, he took on his best friend, Sami Zayn, in this match, a match in which he won, and then following the match, he actually had announcer Byron Saxton come out into the ring and interview him after the match, and he even told Byron what questions to say. Like what questions to ask him. At which point, Owens, well, first of all, he beat Sami Zayn up after the match, before this. So then, during this little interview here, he kind of cut some mini promo, you could say, about wanting to get back into the Intercontinental title picture that he lost, I believe. It was at WrestleMania, yeah. So it was at WrestleMania. He lost the Intercontinental Championship to who was then Zack Ryder, but now it's The Miz. Speaking of that, that would be the next match on. Byron said that, and Kevin Owens actually stayed out for commentary in that match, but more on that in a little bit. Luke, what do you think about this match?
It was a good back and forth match, I thought. Owens won, as you said, and he's one funny guy, I think. I know you said he's a jerk, in the ring. That is his character, though. But he is one funny guy, both inside and outside the ring. And what he did to Byron was really, really funny. And he ended up sitting on commentary, like you said. But this Owens-Zayn feud will go on, I think, probably till SummerSlam. Maybe Battleground right after Money in the Bank. But we'll have to see.
All right. Of course, I just mentioned that the next match on after this match was the Intercontinental Championship match. Cesaro took on The Miz in a match that saw The Miz win after Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn brawled on the outside because Owens was on commentary, as I just said. Zayn came back at him. They brawled on the outside, distracting the referee, and allowed Miz to pick up a roll-up victory over Cesaro.
Yeah, another back-and-forth match. Don't really know what to say about this match because it's going to lead into the future. I think they'll have Owens and Zayn in it somehow, and maybe we have a fatal four-way at SummerSlam.
I think you're spot on. I think that's exactly what they're doing because the brawl continued after the match was over with all four guys battling each other, with Kevin Owens standing tall with the belt raised high at the end of that little brawl there. So I think this leads to a fatal four-way at Extreme Rules between all four of those men, especially after what happened on Raw. There's another number one contender match between Cesaro and Owens, and Sami Zayn interfered. Or actually, I think it was Owens tried to steal Miz's title or something. Miz got one of them disqualified, and then Sami Zayn came out and fought everyone, I think it was. So yeah, I think this leads to a fatal four-way at Extreme Rules coming up, just like you said. The next match after that was Dean Ambrose taking on Chris Jericho, and Ambrose picked up a victory that he so desperately needed after losing a bunch of matches, including a pretty lackluster one at WrestleMania to Brock Lesnar, I would say. And this was a pretty lengthy contest, I would say. It lasted really, really long time, but this is obviously due to the Enzo More injury. All these matches really had to go a little bit longer than they probably were expected to because they needed to fill in that 3-hour gap that they were projecting for this pay-per-view. So, Luke, thoughts on Ambrose Jericho?
Another back and forth match, as all these matches were really, and I like Ambrose. He picked up the win. It was about time, and as I said before too, maybe Dean Ambrose will win a championship in WWE here very, very soon. I know he held the U.S. title about 2 years ago. When the Shield was still together, right before they broke up, he dropped it. But hopefully Ambrose gets his title.
After this match, I think the night kind of took a downhill a little approach right here at this point because of the next two things that happened. But it picked up again at the main event, which we're going to get to, like I said. But the next match after this was the women's title match featuring Natalya taking on Charlotte. And it ended with something that resembled the Montreal Screwjob of 1997, Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels at Survivor Series. Charlotte put Natalya in a sharpshooter, and then ref Charles Robinson, who is often referred to as Little Nate in reference to Charlotte's father, Ric Flair, he was at ringside for this match, He called for the bell without Natalya even tapping out to the sharpshooter. To make this worse, Bret Hart was in the corner of Natalya for this match, who was a part of the original Screwjob, as I said. And following the match, Bret attacked Ric Flair, and then Natty attacked Charlotte as well. They both put Rick and Charlotte into sharpshooters, respectively, to end the little segment there.
Yeah, Bret Hart, as he would say, he is the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be, was ringside, as you said. And it really was a replica of the Montreal Screwjob, just taking place in Chicago.
It felt really out of place for me. It didn't really make sense. Just the only thing that made sense was it being Bret Hart at ringside, but other than that, it didn't really make sense.
And Nate.
Yeah, I guess a little bit.
And then little Nate as
that's what they're trying to do with it, but I'm not really buying it. I'm not really feeling it, I would say. That's part of the reason why I said everything kind of went a little bit downhill for a little bit at this point, because the ending of this match was kind of dumb. It was a great match overall before that, and then this happens, just takes a dump all over it. So, following this match was the announcement of who was going to run Monday Night Raw between Shane and Stephanie McMahon. It was boring to me, and it was really drawn out. I think someone said it was like 30 minutes long, I think it was.
Yeah, it was a long segment. It wasn't anything I was expecting, but
I mean, of course, it's in part due to the Amore injury. Like I said earlier, everything had to get kind of drawn out to fill the time. Then, I mean, all the matches had to go on, so like I said. But Vince, he was supposed to announce who's going to run, Shane or Stephanie, and he chose both of them, which is kind of dumb, I would say. I mean, I think a lot of us, I know you and I think one or the other was going to get picked. I think we both had Shane getting picked, or maybe even neither being picked, one or the other, but not both of them. So what do you think this does going forward? How do they set this up?
Yeah, I think we both had Shane getting control of Raw, but I think it's going to set up them, working well together, but then out of nowhere, one will flip on the other, and then Shane will still get control of Raw, and Stephanie will get control of SmackDown, and we'll have a brand split by the end of the summer.
Yeah, I can see that happening. I think it goes down something like that. Someone tips the balance of power, the other gets frustrated, tries to take out the other one, and then it all culminates at like SummerSlam or something in a match of who gets Raw. But then whoever wins that, the loser gets SmackDown, something like that. So definitely can see that happening. We'll see what happens going forward and into the summer. The main event time. It was main event time now, and this was the World Heavyweight Championship match. It was on the line, and Roman Reigns took on AJ Styles in a pretty great match that really showcased what Styles can do. Both guys really worked together really well in this match. The match progressed on, and then AJ hit a phenomenal forearm on Roman, putting them both through the announce table. This led to a ref's count, which AJ beat the ref's count of 10, but Roman didn't, which meant that AJ Styles won this match. However, you cannot win the championship by a countout, so Roman technically retains. But then, Shane McMahon, newly in charge of Raw, comes out and restarts the match, basically saying that's not how things are done now. Maybe that's how the way it used to be, but it's not going to be the way it is now that I'm here, basically. So the match continued, and both men kept going back and forth with each other, and then Roman hit AJ with an inadvertent low blow, you could say, resulting in a disqualification, which, again, gives Styles the victory. But once again, you cannot win the title on a disqualification, so Roman retains. But then Stephanie McMahon comes out, trying to one-up Shane, and restarts the match, making it a no disqualification match. Now, thanks to the stipulation, the newly debuting Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson, who are really good friends with AJ in real life and in storyline here, they came out and attacked Roman Reigns, leaving him prone in the ring. But then the Usos came out, who are the cousins of Roman, and they came out and attacked Gallows and Anderson. The chaos ensued, and then with it, Roman ended up picking up the victory by spearing AJ for the 1-2-3. But then after that, the stage was set for Extreme Rules when the McMahons were in the back, and Vince asked what they're going to do, if there's going to be a rematch. They said, yeah, AJ's going to get a rematch. It'll be at Extreme Rules in an Extreme Rules match where anything goes and anything can happen. So, Luke, I want to get your thoughts on the match that happened at Payback here, AJ versus Roman.
The match was the best of the night. And I'm very, very excited to see what they both can do at Extreme Rules in a couple of weeks.
Extreme Rules, of course, I just said. Anything's going to go. Do you think that Gallows and Anderson get involved and help AJ maybe even win the title, or do you think something else is afoot?
That could be a possibility. I've also heard rumors about the Shield getting back together. I think I said this last week or 2 weeks ago. And, having the Shield get back together to go up against the Bullet Club, or whatever they're going to call themselves in WWE, Styles, Gallows, and Anderson. And, Ambrose comes back out as his brother of the
Quote
Shield.
unquote brother, yeah.
And then Seth Rollins returns. So we'll have to see. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, the storyline it's pretty interesting storyline event going down the line here, I think, because, of course, in my prediction from last week, I had Finn Balor revealing himself as the leader behind Gallows and Anderson. That didn't happen, but now I think it might happen at Extreme Rules because, of course, with these pay-per-views being so close together, not a lot of super exciting storyline stuff happened here at Payback, which kind of lowers the level of Payback, but it's still a great pay-per-view, I would say. Pretty good, but of course the Enzo Amore injury kind of hangs over this almost as kind of a little negative point. Also, it also just kind of lowered everything just a hair because some matches went on way longer than needed to because of it. The segment with Vince and Stephanie and Shane was the worst thing of the night because of its length and overall boringness. So, yeah, pretty good show. I'm gonna give it a grade of like a B, solid B, B minus.
I'd agree with that.
So, all right, moving on now. We're gonna talk about what happened on Thursday for the NFL Draft, which is actually the reason we didn't record our episode 5 on Thursday. We recorded on Tuesday last week because of the NFL Draft. We didn't want to miss the NFL Draft, so we wanted to talk about it today. So we had it was the 81st annual NFL Draft from Chicago. You said it's the second time in a row, second straight year, or third?
Yeah, second straight year in Chicago after it was in New York City for 50 years.
So yeah, the 81st annual NFL Draft. This draft saw what most people thought would happen in Jared Goff and Carson Wentz going 1 and 2 respectively, Goff going to LA, and Wentz going to Philly. After that, things kind of were a little bit weird, maybe I would say. Joey Bosa went number 3 to San Diego, which was very shocking to me, and probably a lot of other people. I know the guys on the panel on ESPN were kind of a little bit weary on that pick. And then after that, the Cowboys chose Ezekiel Elliott, the running back out of Ohio State, with the 4th pick. I think possibly because of Joey Bosa being off the board at the time, but they might have picked him anyway. I know you were talking earlier about it. You were saying that they're going to pick Ezekiel Elliott anyway, but a little note about that, they almost traded the Baltimore Ravens the 4th pick for their 6th pick, so the Baltimore Ravens were trying to maybe move up to 4 to maybe get a guy like Jalen Ramsey, who actually went 5th now because of not being picked by either San Diego and Dallas, because he was on probably a lot of mock drafts going to one of those two teams. He went 5 to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who many thought would take Miles Jack, but his injury problems ultimately moved him into the 2nd round, where he coincidentally got picked by the Jaguars.
Yeah, the Jaguars still got Miles Jack. I had him going 5 to Jacksonville, but they lucked out and got 2 great players.
Jack is a guy who really fell in the draft. He was a top 5, top 10 caliber type player, but his injury concerns really lowered his stock, and really that's why he went into the 2nd round probably, I would have to say. Another man who fell in the draft was offensive tackle Laremy Tunsil out of Ole Miss, who has his own little injury concerns, coupled with some other off-the-field issues, including the Twitter video that I'm sure a lot of people saw that night. Well, they didn't really see the video, but they know what the extent of it. It was a video posted on Twitter of him smoking a bong in a gas mask, I believe.
Yeah, 10 minutes before the draft started, someone hacked his Twitter account, and then someone attacked his Instagram account during the draft as well, and posted that video that he said it was him. He owned up to it, said it was from a couple years ago. Ole Miss is probably going to get in some trouble now by the NCAA, but He probably doesn't care because he's a member of the Miami Dolphins now.
Yes, he is a member of the Miami Dolphins now. He was originally slated to maybe go number 1 to Tennessee before they traded their pick to the Los Angeles Rams. But then he dropped all the way to number 13 to the Miami Dolphins after 2 other linemen, Ronnie Stanley and Jack Conklin. Stanley going to Baltimore and Conklin to Tennessee at 8 after they traded up from 15, trading with Cleveland, the other team who traded their pick, the number 2 pick, to the Philadelphia Eagles. So he dropped in the draft because of all that stuff that happened. The video, his injury concerns, also the accepting money from a coach or something like that.
Yeah, that was with the Instagram account getting hacked. There was messages posted on there about him needing money for rent and stuff like that. So as I said, Ole Miss is probably going to get in some trouble now by the NCAA, but he probably doesn't care because he's in the NFL now. So,
Luke, you want to go into some more in depth about some other picks here?
Yeah, Tennessee ended up getting a tackle anyways, and Jack Conklin from Michigan State at 8, as you said. Baltimore was going to take Tunsil. I think you said that too. But they took Stanley once the video emerged on social media. Getting done with talking about Tunsil there, he ended up going to 13 to Miami, as you said. 14th overall pick was Oakland's. They took West Virginia safety Carl Joseph. He's in a perfect situation right now. He's going to go in, replace Charles Woodson, who's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer as well, alongside Peyton Manning and a lot of other guys that retired this year from the National Football League. Corey Coleman going to the Browns. The Browns getting their number 1 receiver out of Baylor. Taylor Decker, another Ohio State guy. Ohio State had 5 players get drafted in the first round, and they had 10 players get drafted in the first 3 rounds, which was the most in draft history. Decker went to the Lions at 16. Ryan Kelly, the center from Alabama, goes to the Indianapolis Colts to help restructure their offensive line and help Andrew Luck. The Houston Texans traded up 1 pick with the Washington Redskins, took wide receiver Will Fuller out of Notre Dame. The Redskins at 22 then picked TCU wide receiver Josh Doxson. And then at pick number 23, we had a 3rd wide receiver in a row go, Ole Miss wide receiver Laquan Treadwell. Then moving on to my Pittsburgh Steelers, they took cornerback Artie Burns. Yes, his name is Artie. Get used to it. Because Cincinnati stole Pittsburgh's pick, I believe, in Houston cornerback William Jackson III. Then the next pick, the 26th overall pick, was originally Seattle's. And they decided to trade it to Denver with Paxton Lynch still on the board. Denver selected Paxton Lynch, the quarterback out of Memphis, to come in and help Mark Sanchez and Trevor Siemian, who are there to take over for Peyton Manning and a Super Bowl team that just won Super Bowl 3 months ago now. The one pick I didn't like in the first round was San Francisco trading up with Kansas City. And they gave up 3 picks. A 2nd round, a 4th round, and a 6th round this year for Stanford guard Josh Garnett. I don't know a lot about this Garnett kid, but, I don't think he's going to fit in Chip Kelly's offense from what I've been hearing. The last pick of the first round was pick 31 this year. It's originally 32 because of the 32 teams in the league, but New England had the Deflategate penalty, so Seattle had the last pick. They took tackle Jermaine Ifedi out of Texas A&M.
I'm going to jump in here, try to get some of my little takes on few of these picks here in the first round. I'll start with Corey Coleman, number 15 pick to the Cleveland Browns, the wideout out of Baylor. You talk about him being the number 1 guy in Cleveland, and I think this is a kind of a dumb pick. I don't really like it. I don't think Coleman is capable of being a number 1 guy to the degree of like a Doxson or a Treadwell. I think Cleveland should have picked one of those guys. I don't think Coleman is was the best available at the time. He was the first wideout picked. I know they don't have a number one wideout. I mean, they did in Josh Gordon, but he can't seem to stop doing drugs to get on the field. So that's just another unfortunate thing to happen to Cleveland, I guess. So
why, Josh? Why?
Why indeed, Johnny too? What is going on with the Browns? Apparently, the Browns is where you go to die, as a career at least. They're the career killers of the NFL. I would say. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would. Just because of this is their 25th quarterback, since they moved back to Cleveland now with RG3. So,
Robert, watch out. That's all I'm going to say about that. So, another pick that I don't really understand, mostly just because I know when I saw this pick happen, I went, "What the hell? Who the hell is this?" It was Keanu Neal, the safety out of Florida, going number 17 to Atlanta. I literally went, "Who?"
I did the same thing.
I was like, who is Keanu Neal? I mean, I don't watch a lot of college football like you do. You watch more than I do, of course. You might know a little bit about him. I have no idea who this guy is. He wasn't even projected on first round as far as I knew. So this is really a shocking thing for me to see. And I was just like, what the hell?
Yeah, I do watch more college football than you, but I still didn't know who he was. So,
and for him to go in the first round just makes it even better. It was like I won't get into that now, okay? I'll save it for another time. I was about to tell a story about the NBA draft, but we're not talking about that, so.
Get into it, Corey.
No, it's okay. So, I'm going to say the smartest move in this first round was probably Denver trading up to get Paxton Lynch, coming up from 31 to 26 to get him, the quarterback out of Memphis. Obviously trying to fill the void of losing their two quarterbacks from last year, Peyton Manning and Brock Osweiler. Manning to retirement, Osweiler to free agency. Paxton Lynch goes into likely a battle for the number one spot against Mark Sanchez, but he is capable and just might be the week one starter for the reigning Super Bowl champs.
Yeah, I think Lynch will be the week one starter, and Denver only gave up that number 31 pick that Seattle took, Jermaine Ifedi, and then a third round pick, pick 94, in which the Seattle Seahawks selected tight end Nick Van Nett out of Ohio State.
Luke, you want to get into the second round now?
Yes, the second round, the Cleveland Browns had the first pick. They selected Oklahoma State defensive end Emmanuel Ogbah. Was projected as a first-round pick once he declared, but with other players declaring and such, he's still going to be a good player for the Browns. Now, pick number 34, 35, and 36, I think they're all steals. 34 was Dallas, 35 was San Diego, and 36 was Jacksonville. Two of these players both had knee injuries, Jalen Smith and Miles Jack. Smith going to the Cowboys and Jack going to the Jaguars. And then San Diego was at 35, as I said. They took probably the best tight end in this year's draft class. Tight end Hunter Henry from Arkansas to replace Ladarius Green, who signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers in free agency. Maybe Henry is the next tight end to replace Antonio Gates in San Diego. Then at pick 40, you had the Giants take Sterling Shepard, Oklahoma wide receiver. 44, the Raiders took Illinois defensive end Jihad Ward. He wore number 17 in college because that's how old his mother was when she had him. And he went to a tech school in New York City. And then I heard the story. They would have to go get their stuff in one of the apartments in New York City and then have to walk like 2 miles to a field to practice and then have to walk back to return all the stuff every single day during the season. I'll get more into Oakland here in a little bit. In the third round, they took another Big Ten defensive end. 45 was the Titans they got from the Rams in that big trade before the draft that the Rams ended up getting Jared Goff. They took, I think this was a big surprise to everybody, Alabama running back Derrick Henry. Now Tennessee has the past two Heisman Trophy winners on their team, both on offense, Mariota and Henry now. Keyshawn Johnson's nephew, Michael Thomas, went to your New Orleans Saints, Corey. Give Drew Brees another weapon. And then 48, Jason Spriggs went to the Packers. He just looks like a Green Bay Packer offensive lineman, so I think he's going to fit in real well. And then we got pick number 50 and 51. I was watching the draft, getting anxious. Christian Hackenberg did not go in the first round. Houston was picking at number 52. The Atlanta Falcons were picking at pick 50. They decided to trade picks. Houston got 50, Atlanta got 52, and then the New York Jets are sitting there at pick 51. Houston trade up, as I said. I'm starting to jump up and down because I thought that Houston was going to take Hackenberg. Well, I was wrong. A lot of other Penn State fans are wrong. But Hackenberg ended up going to the New York Jets at pick 51. I'll get into that here in just a second. Houston took center Nick Martin out of Notre Dame. Their second Notre Dame player they took this year. I saw a meme that said the new Houston Texans helmet was the Notre Dame helmet with their logo on the side. I thought that was pretty funny, but Martin can play anywhere on that offensive line. He'll fit in perfect in Houston. Both Martin brothers are in Texas now. Zach's an offensive lineman for the Dallas Cowboys. As I said, the New York Jets. I know I'm saying that a lot, but I'm very, very excited for my favorite player, Christian Hackenberg. Now, if I take too long here, I think everybody can understand why. They took the junior quarterback out of Penn State with 51st overall pick to compete with Geno Smith and Bryce Petty in New York. They have yet to re-sign Ryan Fitzpatrick, who wears Christian Hackenberg's number 14 jersey that he wore at Penn State. But just today, he had chose number 5. It's May 5th as well, so I don't know if that had anything to do with it. I doubt, but Hackenberg will be wearing number 5 for the Jets now, and very, very excited what he can do. For all you critics out there who are criticizing him, I think he will win a Super Bowl during his career as a starter, and I think he will also be a member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame once his career is over. He has a lot of upside, as I've said before. He's going into a great situation as well. If they don't re-sign Ryan Fitzpatrick, it's all right. He's got Matt Forte as his new running back, who the Jets just signed in free agency. They have Brandon Marshall, Eric Decker as wide receivers. They got Jason Morrow as a tight end. And then the offensive line led by Nick Mangold, another Big Ten guy coming out of Ohio State about 10 years ago. As a center, starting up front, it all starts on the offense and defensive lines. And then, speaking of that defense, Todd Bowles is the head coach, was a defense coordinator out in Arizona before he got hired by the Jets before last season. The Arizona Cardinals had one of the best defenses in the league alongside, Seattle and a couple other teams. So I think Christian Hackenberg, he could be the next Broadway Joe. Yes, Joe Namath, who won the only Jets Super Bowl III, back in 1967, I believe it was, 68, 69, back in the late 60s. Not a big Jets fan yet. As I said earlier, I did order a New York Jets hat, which I am currently wearing from NFL Shop. I will be ordering 2 Christian Hackenberg jerseys now since he was giving a number. But as I said, I think he'll be a Super Bowl champ, member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and he will have a great career and prove everybody wrong.
Now, the second round, I saw some teams, they bolstered their teams even further with the combining with their first round picks. One I cite is the Bills getting Reggie Ragland, the linebacker out of Alabama, at 41. adding to the already selected Shaq Lawson, the defensive end out of Clemson, who they picked with the 19th pick in the first round. The Heisman Trophy winner, Derrick Henry, as you said, he went to Tennessee, making it the second straight year that the Titans got a Heisman winner in the draft, Marcus Mariota being the previous, going number 2 in last year's draft. They also added 2 defensive linemen in Kevin Dodd from Clemson and Austin Johnson from your Nittany Lions at 51. Or, no, wait, not 51, sorry. In the second, my bad. The Jets picked 51, and they picked Hackenberg. That's where I was getting to. So that's good for you there, Luke. The Buccaneers, they did something that has been rarely seen in the draft, at least in terms of where this was picked, but they took a kicker with the 59th overall pick, taking Florida State's Roberto Aguayo. He is the first I think he's the first kicker since, I think it was Mike Nugent or something like that, to be taken in the second round of the NFL draft, I think they were saying.
Yeah, it was the 59th pick. Yes, the 59th pick in this year's draft. A kicker was selected. Normally a kicker is not selected until, maybe the 5th, 6th, 7th round, or if they don't get drafted, you sign a free agent deal. But this Aguayo, he was unbelievable at Florida State. He only missed a couple field goals during his whole career. And I believe he had a 100% extra point percentage, if I'm not mistaken, as well.
Yeah, I think it was 100% on the extra point attempts. And he's also a very good kicker, as you said. And we're going to move on to the third round now. Luke, take it away.
With the first pick of the third round, the Tennessee Titans select safety Kevin Byard from Middle Tennessee State. And then with the next pick, another Nittany Lion, Carl Nassib, former walk-on Penn State, was selected by the Cleveland Browns. So the Cleveland Browns get 2 defensive ends in a row in the second and third rounds. Moving on down the line in the third round, as I said, the Raiders took another Big Ten defensive end, Shalik Calhoun, out of Michigan State, was reportedly was projected as a first round pick 2 years ago if he would have came out, but he slides into the middle of the third round. And then pick number 77, you also have the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns had a slew of picks this year. I think they're actually finding out, what the right way of picking guys in the draft is. But they took another West Virginia guy, West Virginia cornerback Darryl Worley. No, that's not Darryl Worley, the country music singer, but another cornerback, Kendall Fuller from Virginia Tech, went to the Washington Redskins. Now, Kendall Fuller, he is the 4th and final brother of the Fuller family to have played in the NFL. His other 3 brothers, I believe 2 are currently still playing, and the oldest has retired. Braxton Miller, former quarterback at the Ohio State University, turned wide receiver, was selected by the Houston Texans with the 85th pick. And then you got the Seattle Seahawks. They had 3 picks from pick 90 to pick 97. With their first one, they took C.J. Prosise. The second one, as I said, they got from Denver. They took Ohio State tight end Nick Van Nett. And then they took, with their third and final pick of the third round, Boise State tackle Reese Abo. If I'm not mistaken, that's how you say his last name. Seattle really needs linemen. They really couldn't run the ball last year. Russell Wilson was running for his life too, trying to throw the ball. So they're filling those needs there on the offensive line.
Some teams really got busy in that third round. Like you said, the Browns had a slew of picks in this entire draft. They had 4 picks in the third round alone. 2 other teams, the Patriots and the Seahawks, both had 3 picks in this third round. The Browns, with their 4 picks, they got Carl Nassib, the defensive end out of Penn State, like you said. They got, who was it there with the cornerback, I believe? Yes, Darryl Worley, the cornerback out of West Virginia with the 77th pick. With the 76th pick, they chose offensive tackle out of Auburn, Sean Coleman, and then Cody Kessler, the quarterback out of USC. going 93. So that's where I was talking earlier about Robert Griffin III, maybe having a little competition. I think I said earlier that's Cody Kessler there that they picked.
A lot of people were thinking they were going to take Connor Cook because he was still on the board at that time. But they took Kessler. Speaking of Cook, he went with the second pick of the fourth round, number 100 overall. Oakland actually traded with Cleveland. As we said, Cleveland had a slew of picks this year. And Oakland took Connor Cook, the quarterback out of Michigan State. Now, I don't know why they did. They have Derek Carr as their quarterback. They have Matt McGloin as his backup currently, but it looks like McGloin's going to be out of a job, and Cook's going to back up. Derek Carr there out in Oakland. Some other picks in the fourth round. Baltimore took running back Kenneth Dixon out of Louisiana Tech, and then another quarterback from the Big Ten, Cardale Jones, went to the Buffalo Bills. Circle those wagons, Buffalo Bills.
Another guy that got picked in the fourth round, Dak Prescott, the quarterback out of Mississippi State. He went to the Cowboys, maybe to possibly take the backup role of Tony Romo in the future. And moving forward, we'll see what that is. I don't know if they're really confident in that pick of being the future of the Cowboys. I doubt it.
No, I don't think so. He reminds me of Quincy Carter. I think he will be the next Quincy Carter in the NFL, who played for the Cowboys as well. Now, the Cowboys tried trading up for Paxton Lynch, but they didn't give Seattle enough, and Seattle traded that pick to Denver, who, as we said, took Lynch. Moving on to the fifth round, Indiana running back Jordan Howard went to the Bears to back up another Big Ten running back in his second year this year now, Jeremy Langford out of Michigan State, since Matt Forte left Chicago to go to the Jets. The other North Dakota State player in the draft this year was tackle Joe Hagg. He went to the Colts at pick 155. Another West Virginia safety. That secondary is going to have to rebuild down at WVU this year. The Houston Texans took safety KJ Dillon. They were actually trying to take Carl Joseph in the first round, but he was already taken by the Oakland Raiders. So they get the other safety from West Virginia and Dillon. Kevin Hogan, great Stanford quarterback, came in after Andrew Luck goes to the Kansas City Chiefs. And then Seattle takes their second and third running backs in this year's draft with running back Alex Collins out of Arkansas. And he might be the future backup in Seattle. The first fullback off the board was in round 6. Andy Javnik from Nebraska went to the Denver Broncos. And then a couple picks later, the first punter goes off the board. Drew Kaiser from Texas A&M. And then with the very next pick, pick 180, and then pick 182, Corey, I'll let you talk about these. Two players a lot of people probably didn't think would even get drafted. Got drafted in the 6th round, and they hope to make their marks in the NFL.
Yeah, with the 180th pick, the Minnesota Vikings selected a wide receiver out of Germany. Yes, Germany. He didn't go to any formal college here in the United States. He's just straight out of Germany. You'd swear you're watching the NBA draft with that. So this wide receiver, Moritz Boehringer. I don't know if I said that right. I'm not exactly fluent in the German language, the dialect or whatnot, but Boehringer, something like that. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. If you hear this, I don't know if you would, but sorry if I did. With the 182nd pick, the Baltimore Ravens selected former Navy quarterback Keenan Reynolds, and he played quarterback there at Navy. He was even considered, I believe, for the Heisman Trophy this past season as well.
Yeah, he finished 5th in the Heisman voting, losing to Deshaun Watson, Derrick Henry, and Christian McCaffrey. Derrick Henry won.
He's being converted to a wideout. I thought, as what I read, I think, but this here, the official draft sheet that we have says running back. I don't know if that's true or not. I heard wide out. Maybe he's going to be a running back. I'm not 100% sure. I know he was very efficient as a runner in college.
Maybe he plays both. Maybe he helps out that Baltimore Raven offense and maybe gets them towards another Super Bowl here.
I want to talk about another couple guys in the 6th round. You had Derek Watt, fullback out of Wisconsin. He went to the Chargers in the 6th round. He's the brother of the Houston Texans defensive end, J.J. Watt. Not much to say about him. I don't really know much other than that about him. Luke, do you?
They both went to Wisconsin. That's pretty much it. And he hopes to make his mark in the league as well.
Finally, I want to talk about Rico Gathers, a tight end out of Baylor. He went to the Cowboys in the 6th round. He actually played basketball in college at Baylor. He was pretty successful at basketball there as well. He decided to move on, try to play for the NFL, kind of that Antonio Gates, Jimmy Graham, Tony Gonzalez, whatever type mold there. He's trying to fill that too. And I think the Cowboys might get a really stellar tight end maybe with Rico Gathers. I don't know. He's a pretty big guy. He'd be really useful in the red zone, I think. But we'll have to see how he works out. He hasn't played football, organized football, for how long? I don't know how old he is, but I think it's like age 13, I think it was. He hasn't played since then.
Yeah, it was something in his teenage years. It might have been 7th, 8th, or 9th grade. I can't remember. And then another fullback out of the Big Ten, Northwestern fullback Dan Vitale. Don't think he's related to Dickie V at all, but could be wrong on that. He went to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, one pick before Derek Watt. And then Jeff Driscoll, who ran the fastest 40-yard dash at the Combine this year, went to the San Francisco 49ers with the 207th overall pick. I don't think Driscoll fits in Chip Kelly's offense, but who knows? Chip Kelly might not even be there in a couple years, and they could bring in somebody else. Driscoll could be the next Joe Montana. Who knows? And then San Francisco also picked Kelvin Taylor, the running back out of Florida. Yes, that's Fred Taylor's kid, the legendary Florida running back as well, and the legendary Jacksonville Jaguar. Moving on to the 7th and final round of the draft. It's been cut down from 20 rounds to 15 to 12, 10. Finally settled on 7 a while ago, and it's been like that ever since. The second pick of the 7th round was Brandon Dodery, quarterback from Western Kentucky, went to the Miami Dolphins. He's from Miami. He actually went to LSU and then transferred to Western Kentucky during his collegiate career. I think he'd be a good backup to Ryan Tannehill down in Miami. And then the Steelers took Tyler Matakavich with a 246th overall pick, the Temple linebacker. Maybe he's the next Jack Ham or Jack Lambert. We'll have to find out about that. And then another linebacker, Scooby Wright. Yes, his name is Scooby, nickname Scooby, but that's what he goes by, was drafted by the Cleveland Browns. So he fits right in. He's going to the dog pound. But then we can't forget, the last pick of the draft is called Mr. Irrelevant. This year, it was owned by the Denver Broncos, but they traded that pick to the Tennessee Titans, and the Tennessee Titans selected cornerback Kalen Reed out of Southern Mississippi with the last and final pick of the 2016 NFL Draft. There was some confusion there with league officials. They came out with a Denver Broncos jersey, yet the Titans own the pick, but as I said, Denver traded that pick to Tennessee, so he's going to Tennessee, not Denver, folks.
That wraps up our little recap of the draft, and with that, we move into goal line stand. This is our quick fire, little question round where we get some minor questions from more current things going on in the sports world. So first, Luke, I'm going to ask you. Mark Sanchez is confident in being the Broncos starter despite Paxton Lynch being picked by the Broncos. Do you buy that?
Now, Mark Sanchez, he has been a starter in the league before. Got drafted in the top 10 by the New York Jets back in 2009 out of USC. and then he went to Philly, and now he's out in Denver. I don't buy it. I believe Paxton Lynch is going to be the week 1 starter for the Denver Broncos this year.
All right. Now, the Oakland Raiders are seriously considering moving to Las Vegas. Would you like to see football in Sin City?
It'd be good for Vegas, but me, myself, I'm a history buff, so, with history on its side, the Raiders have always either been in LA or Oakland. I think they should stay in California, but if they do move to Vegas, I don't think anybody would have a problem with it.
Except for the people of Oakland, of course.
Except for them, yeah.
All right. So Chris Bosh was officially ruled out of the playoffs, I think today or yesterday. So what are the Miami Heat's chances of beating the Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference Finals if that does happen?
Now, I know you had the Heat going to the finals, but I don't think it's going to help them at all. I think the Cavs are still going to go to the finals and play the Golden State Warriors in the NBA Finals.
So you think that the Heat has no chance without Chris Bosh to beat Cleveland?
Correct.
All right. I think they're just really slim, but I'm still going to pick them nonetheless. Final question here. We have the Kentucky Derby is this Saturday. Luke, who is your pick for the Kentucky Derby?
I'm going to pick Destin. I believe he's a 15-1 odds at the moment. Those are probably going to change between now and Saturday. But I'm going to pick Destin because he's destined to win the Kentucky Derby.
My pick, I chose 2, and my picks are always pretty much wrong because I just pick based on name half the time. But nonetheless, because normally I normally pick one that's like terrible odds because I like the name, so I digress on that. But I have Majesto for the name. He's a 30-1 odd right now. And then I have Creator, who's more of the more odds-on favorite, more so than Majesto, of course. He's a 10-1 odds. So those are the 2 horses that I hope can win. I would, of course, the favorite right now is Nyquist. He's at 3-1 right now, but you said those can change from now to Saturday. We have a few days before then. We'll see what it is come Saturday. But otherwise, this is actually our question of the week this week. Who do you think is going to win the Kentucky Derby? That is our question of the week. Make sure you answer that question. You can answer it right here in the YouTube comment section. You can answer that on Facebook and Twitter. If you're answering on Twitter, make sure you use the hashtag ATGL16. That's ATGL16. That's also our Twitter handle if that helps. So you can answer them both there and on the YouTube comment section. Otherwise, this is where we're going to wrap it up for the day. Subscribe to this YouTube channel if you haven't already. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at ATGL16. Both of those links are available in the description of this video. Don't forget to email us any questions or concerns at acrossthegoalline2016@gmail.com, and we will see you on the next edition of Across the Goal Line, live from the field.